because on this article from IPMnewsroom.org, it says Sangamon County Sheriff defends hiring of Sean Grayson. Expert says he was negligent and missed red flags. I should have said obvious red flags. And this was posted on August the 2nd. Remember, this is the sheriff that they are pressuring to have resign from his position because, again, of his own negligence. It says the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office hired now former Deputy Sean Grayson despite his history of policing at 5 other police departments in 3 years, serious misconduct in the military, and integrity issues at former jobs. Experts say this combination of issues should have been a glaring warning about Grayson as a candidate. In this particular circumstance, there were enough red flags or things that make you go, wow, there's a problem here, says Chris Burbank, a former longtime chief of the Salt Lake City Police Department. Before I go forward, this typically happens a lot in these departments. This happens way more often than it does not. And then they wanted to say, oh, they're not all bad. Well, it's way more there that are bad than are not. Basically, this guy hired a criminal. In an interview conducted August the 1st, Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell defended his agency vetting of Grayson. Campbell, age 60, he said he won't resign amid public criticism in the wake of the shooting death of Sonya Massey, a black woman at the hand of Grayson, who was white. Put a pin in what I just wrote as we go forward later on with this live. Grayson has been charged with first-degree murder, aggravated battery, assault, battery with a firearm, and official misconduct after shooting and killing Massey in her home in the early morning hours of July 6th after she called for help thinking there was a prowler outside of her home in the Cabbage Patch neighborhood of incorporated Sangamon County just outside of Springfield. Invisible Institute, IPM News, and Illinois Times obtained Grayson's personnel file and application materials through a public records request to the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office. After reviewing these records, Burbank said he believes the sheriff's office was negligent in hiring Grayson. Gee, you think? My bottom line, they were insufficient in evaluating this individual's backgrounds before hiring, and to that extent, I believe they negligently hired this person and bear some responsibility for his poor actions, said Burbank, who is now a law enforcement strategy consultant with the Center for Police and Equity. In the interview with Illinois Times, Campbell disagreed, calling Burbank's comments opinion and speculation. There was no indication that anything in his background would lead to a violent event like that. Oh, really now? Because we went through a lot of his stuff about 2 weeks ago that says that he most likely would have. See, again, they keep defending him, and this is what and the cycle continues. There was nothing in his background that would disqualify him from being a police officer in Illinois, the sheriff says. So now we see that if you have a background like his, and of course, if you look like him, collection for the protection for the collection, then you might actually have a fighting chance of working in this department, or a vast majority of departments that have the same mindset. Campbell, a Republican, who was halfway through his second 4-year term as sheriff, said Grayson was never fired from any of the 5 part-time and full-time police agencies he worked for in the 3 years before he joined the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office in May 2023. He said he will be willing to work with state officials to improve communications amongst police agencies about personnel issues. He said he told people who handle hiring in his office to be as thorough as possible since Massey's death sparks protests locally, statewide, and nationally. My standard is now that I want you to figure out a way to not hire this person, Campbell said. That is my new standard. I want you to do your best to keep this person from being hired. That's not really an angle we ever took. If you ever thought about it, it's a negative angle, but I think that it's a good idea for us to take that angle and then again, work with these other entities about trying to find a way to ensure we get all of the information. The hiring process for Grayson has spurred several Democrats of the Sangamon County Board, including Mark Ayers, to call for Sheriff Jack Campbell to resign. Ayers, who represents District 12 and sits on the board jail committee, which oversees the sheriff's office, said the Sangamon County Sheriff's hiring process needs to be overhauled to include more input from the county employees. Before all of this happened, we knew absolutely nothing, and not just about the former deputy. Literally any deputy that comes on, Ayers said, we literally know nothing about them, and that should be seen as a red flag. Reforming this system, all right, my bad, I skipped the part. The county board is really just holding the purse strings, Ayers said. Once they approve the budget to hire a new officer, the only information the county board members see about a new hire is their name. That leaves almost the sole power of hiring to Sheriff Campbell and the Sheriff's Office Deputy Merit Commission, whose member he appoints. Reforming the system is a top priority for many board members after the death of Sonya Massey. That process has got to get looked at first and foremost, because I think having sole hiring authority being done behind closed doors is not building public trust. At a community meeting on July 29th, Campbell said his department failed the community and failed Sonya Massey and her family, but he told Illinois Times that his statement didn't mean his office made mistakes in hiring Grayson. It's like a backhanded thing. It's like they're acknowledging what they did was wrong, but at the same time they're saying that we're not all the way wrong. Now this next part is talking about his Sean Grayson's application, saying that it had questionable references. Make sure if y'all haven't done so already, hit the like button. I would appreciate it. At the Logan County Sheriff's Office, where he worked immediately before being hired at Sangamon County, Grayson was investigated for initiating a traffic pursuit that reached 110 miles per hour. Now y'all are getting a little bit more background into the audio that y'all heard in the beginning, because there really wasn't no context there. But the reason why the audio that y'all heard is coming from what I just read about this traffic pursuit that went over 100 miles an hour. The incident ended with him hitting a deer after he had turned his lights and sirens off, but was still traveling at a high speed. During the investigation, Logan County Chief Deputy Nathan Miller made clear he believed that Grayson had lied in his official report, documenting his reasoning for initiating the stop in the first place. Grayson stated that he'd seen a woman suspiciously slide down in her seat in a parked pickup truck after making eye contact with him, but Miller demonstrated through Google Maps and video footage that Grayson could not have physically seen what he had claimed to have seen based on his location. Just based on what Grayson had written in his report, Miller said, you got a report writing violation for policy. You got an accuracy violation for policy. You got a standard of conduct violation of policy. Craig Futterman, who directs the University of Chicago Civil Rights and Police Accountability Clinic, described the traffic stop to Invisible Institute in IPM News as a classic pretext stop, based solely on Grayson's suspicion that some potential crime had occurred without any evidence, and said his decision to escalate the stop to a high-speed pursuit was an extreme example of poor judgment. Despite these issues with the case, all that existed in the official written report for the investigation was that Grayson admitted his memory failed him, which sounds like a load of crap, and that he needed more training on quote-unquote high-stress decision-making. Sangamon County Sheriff Jack Campbell has blamed Logan County for failing to provide additional material. So now they're doing the finger pointing thing. Campbell told Illinois Times that he spoke with Logan County Sheriff Mark Landers after Massey's death. Campbell didn't say specifically whether Sangamon County asked Landers for a broad range of information from Grayson's personnel file. All I know is that he verified that we didn't get the information that we saw. He told WCIA that he relied on professional courtesy when contacting previous departments. A spokesperson for Landers said he will not speak to the media about Grayson. In his 2-page background investigation, Sangamon County Sheriff's Lieutenant Wes Wooden summarized Grayson's time at the Logan County agency in a paragraph that quoted Jerry Mays, a former co-worker of Grayson's, who was also a personal reference. Wooten wrote that Mays said Grayson is a quote-unquote good deputy who needs more extensive training. Why do they always default to needing more training? The guy's been passed around like a carton of cigarettes. And where was all that so-called training before he started getting shifted around to all these other departments? Training was off the table at that point. He was already locked in with how he would decided that he was going to do things and operate on his own terms and outside of the realms of what he was supposed to as based in their code of conduct. However, the Sangamon County Sheriff's background investigator should have been able to uncover what reporters were eventually able to. Regardless of what the official record provided by Logan County was, said Burbank. He pointed to the fact that the only interview that the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office did with the Logan County Sheriff's Office wasn't with the supervisor of Grayson's, but rather with Mays, a co-worker who was also listed as a personal reference. The two most important things you can do as a police chief is hire people and fire people, Burbank said. Those are the only two things you have control over. In the background investigation, the other personal reference listed was Scott Butterfield, who identified as the father of Grayson's girlfriend. Butterfield was also a longtime official with the sheriff's office who retired from the office in 2020 after 24 years. In a podcast interview released on May 7, 2024, Sheriff Campbell discussed how family ties plays into his hiring decisions. Sharing that he's a legacy with the sheriff's office due to his father's have worked there, Campbell said, "I look for things like that when evaluating applicants. If we have a connection when we're looking for young applicants, do you have a connection with law enforcement, especially the sheriff's office? Even if it's 2 or 3 degrees separated, there's still some connection there," said Campbell on the Table podcast released by Springfield cleaning company Peerless Cleaning and Restoration Services. If you have that type of connection to an agency, then you really, I think, put in the effort and you want to do right by your family, Campbell continued. Your family knows that other people were there, could be an uncle or something, so I think that also ties us down when parsing through applications. In his interview with Illinois Times, Campbell said that Grayson's connection to Butterfield had very little influence on the decision to hire Grayson. "I've lived here my entire life. I've been in law enforcement for 30 years plus, and I know a lot of people. So I end up inevitably knowing some of the people that are listed as references or neighbors or something. I considered it, but it didn't change my feeling about Grayson. It was simply, okay, he will get an interview like everybody else and we'll see how it plays out." He told the podcast host that he thinks the sheriff's office has the best application process when compared with other local law enforcement. After applicants pass the physical and written test, he said they're entered into this giant pool of potential deputies. "We can pluck anybody from that pool," Campbell said. "We don't have any sort of order you have to go in by how you scored or anything. So I think we have the best process to hand select the best people." Nepotism runs thick in Sangamon County. Sangamon County Board Member Ayer said of Grayson's hiring, "That makes me question, are we hiring the most qualified individuals, or are we just hiring folks that know someone else? Because that's inappropriate." In his online statement, Campbell also shifted blame for the hiring process to the Sangamon County Sheriff's Deputy Merit Commission, writing, "Through our current hiring process, Grayson's application was reviewed and sent to a merit commission for review and certification. The merit commission certified Grayson for hire. However, Springfield lawyer Patrick Tim Timoni, a former Sangamon County Democratic Party chairperson and chairperson of the Merit Commission, said the Merit Commission doesn't review and certify applications. It also doesn't do background checks." This is a mouthful, y'all. This is a lot, right? This is a lot of information right here. When I pulled this up, I did not expect to reveal all of this, but hey, what does the title say? A deeper dive into Sean Grayson's background, and that's exactly what this one article right here is providing. That is crazy, but not surprising. We continue. The Sangamon County Sheriff's Office did have Grayson's records from the U.S. Army, showing he was discharged because of serious misconduct. However, no records were included about what this serious misconduct was, and that's what we learned about 2 weeks ago. Is that when we learned that he did get discharged, he got dishonorably discharged from the military, but they never revealed why he was discharged. It's still a mystery. According to Sheriff Campbell, he believed Grayson's DUI in 2015 was the reason for his discharge from the military because of a letter Grayson's former commanding officer wrote in his application to the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office. Aside from Mr. Grayson's DUI, there were no other issues that he had during his tenure in the Army, Master Sergeant Ray Bennigan wrote in a letter of reference. "Past DUI convictions are not disqualifying criteria for a deputy," Campbell wrote in an online statement on July 31st. "We recognize that individuals can change and improve over time. I have no idea if it's correct or not," Campbell told Illinois Times of Bennigan's letter. "If he's misled us, I would think that would endanger his career. I don't know how you get this information out of the military." However, experts said that the letter in and of itself should have been a red flag to Campbell. It wasn't relevant to his application to become a sheriff deputy, said former Air Force Judge Joshua Katzenberg, because Bennigan wrote it as a letter of reference to help Grayson someday get back into a branch of the military. "If he can join the Navy, I have no doubt he will be a great asset and work very hard to be the best," Bennigan wrote in his unsigned, undated letter. The letters from Bennikin and another sergeant who provided reference letter that also discussed Grayson returning to the military, don't apply to a police department application, said Kastenberg, who's now a University of New Mexico law professor. Who's ever responsible should have just looked at those and said, this is a big red flag. At best, what they did was negligent. If these letters came from an actual officer, especially a commanding officer, they would be on letterhead and have much more of an official appearance, said Anthony Giotto, a University of Illinois law professor and former Air Force prosecutor. These were obviously not written by his commanding officer, agreed Jeffrey Korn, a former Army lieutenant colonel who directs Texas Tech University Center for Military Law and Policy. He said the letters could have been written as rebuttals during Grayson's discharge. They seem to be exactly what a soldier would get when his detailed military defense lawyer tells him to go find some people who will say some good things about him. Expert consulted by Invisible Institute and IPM News have said that while it's possible that the DUI was by itself the sole reason for the discharge, it's also likely other misconduct occurred to warrant such a discharge. Public records requests are pending with various Army offices for records about Grayson's service and discharge. As a police chief who used to hire officers, Burbank said military records are often difficult to get. However, he said discharge records because of serious misconduct should have prompted the sheriff's office to find out more. Now it's another section in here. It says experts say red flags were missed. I think we're getting closer to the end. It says hiring processes that don't investigate red flags allow officers like Grayson to move from the department to department without accountability, which is exactly what happened here. Again, this man floated between 6 different departments in 4 years. That right there is a red flag in and of itself. Across the country, you have officers that move from agency to agency and they have substandard performance that is either not documented whatsoever or is documented and then not passed down. So people end up being hired that really shouldn't be police officers anymore, but continue to perpetuate this problem. Other figures in policing have also spoken out about what they see as clear issues with the hiring process. If a police chief or sheriff believes this was a thorough hiring process, you're wrong, wrote Tommy Witzel, former chief of the Riverside Police Department in Chicago's West Suburbs, on social media. Sonya Massey was killed by an officer who drifted from one law enforcement job to another after leaving the Army after a serious offense, wrote Cedric Alexander, a former police and public safety official in Minneapolis, suburban Atlanta, and Rochester, New York, in an MSNBC op-ed. It doesn't appear that any of the departments that hired him thoroughly vetted him, which they clearly didn't. However, could they have hired him if they had? Both cited Invisible Institute and IPM News coverage of Grayson's Army discharge. Sheriff Jack Campbell defended his decision to hire Grayson despite his moves from department to department in an online statement after his office released the former deputy's personnel file. Grayson's employment history shows that he was employed by 5 different law enforcement agencies prior to applying to the Sangamon County Sheriff's Office. This is a standard career path in this field, Campbell wrote online. What I prefer to see is movement to progressively larger and more structured agencies with higher levels of public interaction, which indicates professional growth and ambition.
Damn. It's a bunch of bullshit.
That's exactly what it is. So you're trying to insult my intelligence and say the reason why Sean Grayson was moved to all these different departments in a matter of 4 years is because he wants growth? See, he's trying to save his own ass. That's what this really is. But like I said, put a pin in that. Because when I get to the last article of this stream, it's going to all come full circle, at least for the sheriff. Some of y'all in the chat already are aware of what that is. Ayers believes building a new way to screen and hire deputies is essential to build the public's trust after Massey's death and then the nationwide scrutiny on policing in Sangamon County, Ayers said. The public trust has been decimated at this point from what happened with Sonya Massey, Ayers said. There's got to be another body that reviews applications and background checks to screen candidates before they even get to Sheriff Campbell for hire. And that is the entire article. Woo, that was a lot. That sounds like a lot. But yeah, keep an eye on this guy right here. Again, this is Sheriff Jack Campbell, y'all. This is the one right here that allowed this man to still stay on and is trying to make every excuse in the book that you can think of for why he hired him, why he chose not to fire him, and defending all his actions and all of that. Just keep a pin in that.